DALI is a famous Danish speaker company, and now they've made a couple of pairs of wireless headphones, one of which is noise cancelling. So, considering they're more expensive than equivalent Sony and Bose models, are they any good? Well, DALI sent me a pair of their noise cancelling headphones to check out. So a quick look inside the box of the IO-6. I wanted to show you, a couple of useful things in their setup, which is very handy. Most things, the box is something that just stores the product, but usefully when you open the flap, you get a quick start guide. So it shows you what to press and where and what to plug in without any extra languages, I guess because they makes it easily international. So you see, for example, the colors of the battery level indicator and how to go forward and back in your music and where to plug everything in. And then you have them in their case. Now the case is interesting, and you also have, of course, a little bit of a guide and a sticker if you care about those kinds of things. But the case itself, it's somewhat bulky, and if you compare to something like FiO's EH3Cs, you see they're smaller and thinner, and that's because the EH3Cs fold and the IO-6 does not fold. So for around the ear headphones, they sit thus. And for example, if you take them out and you expand them, then you have to collapse them before they'll fit neatly back inside their case. Which, I mean, if you have foldable headphones like the EH3Cs, you have to fold them up, which actually is a little bit more irritating. But so you're trading a bulk for convenience slightly. Now inside here we have, of course, the 3.5mm cable, which you can see I've already used, already unwrapped it. We have a USB-C cable, of course A to C, and an airline adapter. So this is, I can tell you this, watching movies in an airplane through good noise cancelling headphones rather than the crappy headsets they give you is much, much nicer. So that's what's in the case. The headphones themselves, well, if you've used noise cancelling headphones before, you probably find them pretty much straightforward. They're like any kind of common headphones with a nice padded headband, some flexibility there. They don't clamp too hard, and these aluminium sliders, which make them bigger or smaller as required, which are fairly stiff, fairly firm in how they hold. In terms of connection, or if you're not familiar, I'll just go through it. On the left hand side you have your 3.5mm in jack. You can use these wired with a power off as regular headphones, or wired on with and without noise cancelling, just as you can using them wireless. On the right hand side you have your USB-C in port, which also can be an audio in port up to 96 kHz, so you can do some high res with it. Not that I particularly care about high res for this kind of headphone, but it's there if you need it. Now the interesting thing is, and thank you DALI for this, a physical power on button. Now a lot of noise cancelling headphones have a button you press and hold for say 2 seconds and it powers on, and 5 seconds for pairing. This one goes click, and then pairing is you push one more, and it gives an announcement, of course. And you have your Bluetooth indicator, which indicates if Bluetooth is active. You have your battery indicator, which we saw in the quick start guide, changes color depending on the battery level, so you can see at a glance. A reset switch, which you can activate with a paperclip if necessary. If there's something goes wrong, it won't reset the Bluetooth, but it will reset. If something is not working quite right, you can reset the circuitry. And the switch for turning the noise cancelling on or off, or turning what they call transparency mode, which is like a monitor mode. In other words, it lets sounds through. So if you're doing something like riding a bicycle or working outdoors and you need to be able to hear what's going on around you, you just press that once to cycle between each mode. Now, on the outside of the cups, you have some playback options. This is a button, and depending how many times you press it, it is either play and pause, or if you double, triple tap it, it can go forward or back. And then volume up and volume down are these points. And that's it. There's no funny sliding touch things, it's just buttons, which I like. And now the cups themselves are fairly soft and pliable and nice, and they come off fairly easily. A firm turn and click, and there we go. They can be replaced as necessary. And there you can see the noise cancelling, the part of the noise cancelling circuitry there. And interestingly, these have paper cone drivers. Now, how long has it been since we've seen paper cone drivers in a pair of headphones? I think the last pair was in my father's pair of, was it Sennheiser HD 424s or thereabouts, or 414s, I forget, from the 1970s. That's been a long time. Paper cone driver, that's really rare. So interesting using that. And I don't know if that's the best for durability or what have you, but I don't know, the sound I'm going to talk about right now. I put the IO-6 through its paces, both here at home plugged into the amps behind me and also wirelessly, and I also took it on a flight to Tokyo where I assessed its noise cancelling abilities. Now, first of all, its kind of overall tonality. If you've heard some other pairs of headphones, such as Sony noise cancelling headphones or Bose, they can be, for some people, find them very bass strong. It's interesting that the DALI go for a more neutral kind of balanced sound. That is, they don't have any excess emphasis in the bass, mids, or treble. Very even sounding headphones. Now, to start with, being wireless noise cancelling headphones, they are not going to have the kind of sound quality at this kind of price range like a good pair of planers have, or even a pair of HD6XXs have. Their advantage, of course, is being able to be used wirelessly and with noise cancelling. So you do still sacrifice a little bit of sound quality compared to, say, a straight up pair of headphones. But in that kind of tonal neutrality they have, they could still do things like low, deep rumbling bass quite sufficiently. For example, from my number 82 playlist, I have the good old new basement tapes, which starts off with a deep rumble. It didn't quite do it such as some headphones and IEMs can, but it still came through quite sufficiently. Also, listening to a particular London Grammar track, I found that has a bit of a deep bass rumble, and it came through actually reasonably cleanly, which quite enjoyably. And I did find that they do have a nice kind of tonal balance where none of the, if you need bass will come through. Not very strongly, but strongly enough to be satisfying. The interesting thing was using them with the, say, wired with a power on or wired with a power off. The tonality did change a little bit. For example, wired with power off, which is how you might use them as straight up headphones, they sounded a little bit brighter, and I'd say probably even a little bit harsh in the treble. And so I prefer them actually even wired with the power on, with the amplification running through the internal circuitry. Now in that, when powered on and using wired or wirelessly, as I use them on the plane, say plugged into the entertainment system, or wirelessly from my a phone or a portable player, then the treble was just at the right level not to be fatiguing for a long flight. So that overall sound signature had a general lack of harshness and was very easy to listen to for long periods, combined of course with the quite good, if not the best comfort that's available out there in a pair of headphones. So getting into wireless mode was much the same as wired. Now, as I said, they're not going to beat a pair of, say, $350 Hi-Fi Man Sundaras at in terms of absolute sound quality. So the kind of any loss in terms of sound quality switching to wireless was pretty much, to my ears, inaudible. It was much the same wired and powered on and wireless and powered on. As long as I was using something like aptX or better, they just sounded about the same, and pretty good at that. And probably, like I said, one of the pleasant things was they didn't have any overemphasis in any particular frequency range, but they could reproduce everything, quite cleanly. So, for example, whether it was vocals and something like the Wailing Jennies, or some good old Neil Young, or even the guitar on some Jeff Beck playing guitar, as I have on my number 82 playlist, that all came through pretty well, although I could, because I'm used to better headphones, hear that there was coming through a little bit veiled. So again, not quite $350 headphones, but still where they really shined was on an airplane. Now, the noise cancelling on this is not going to be as good as Sony or Bose. So where the trade-off ends up being where the sound cancellation isn't quite as good as the top makers, the kind of overall tonal balance was more pleasant for someone who likes something more even and something less bass heavy. Now, on an airplane where I measured probably about 76 dBs of noise, these cut out all but some of the high frequencies. So you get all the bass, all the rumble of the airplane, and everything kind of deep down seems completely cut out. And there's all that was left with, as long as no music was playing, was this just slight hiss of maybe the higher frequencies of, say, the engine noise or airplane noise in general. But once music was playing, I found them very pleasant to listen with. And again, there weren't quite so bass strong. You do tend to lose a little bit more bass when you've got a lot of noise in the background that I found. But still, I found them very nice to listen with for, you know, a good couple of hours, and I probably would take them on, happily take them on a longer flight for if I was going to be listening more. And then they did really shine. Again, they're not Sony or Bose, but still, it cut out enough noise that I was very pleased to have all that deep rumble of the airplane just wiped out. And you can kind of test them for yourself. You know, you put them on your head, and whereas I go thump the table here, that's a low noise, and the noise cancelling will cut that out. If I flick my fingers, which is a higher pitched sound, I can just hear that even with the noise cancelling on. And in both cases with no music playing. And in terms of general usage, they, you know, did the job. This acts as your, you know, play, pause, and other things. And mainly, I just was able to increase or decrease the volume as necessary. One interesting thing I did note is the volume controls don't work even when it's powered on if you're connected wired. And so in that case, you have to use the control of whatever amp that you plugged into. So that was only maybe one little disadvantage, as I would have liked to use, say, direct line out from something like one of the DAPs I have here, you know, to see how that goes, but that's kind of impractical. So overall, they're quite an expensive pair of noise cancelling headphones. I mean, they price themselves above Sony and Bose, and their noise cancelling isn't quite as good. But the thing is, their overall tonal balance and sound quality is really good. So if you don't mind sacrificing a little bit of noise cancelling ability, you will get a more even sound compared to a lot of other noise cancelling wireless headphones out there. So in the end, I reckon DALI did a pretty good job in making these. While there's some good and some bad, the sound quality is a lot nicer if you want a more even sound from a pair of noise cancelling headphones. And on the other hand, they are quite expensive, quite a jump up in price from your Sony or Bose top of the line models. So thanks once again for watching. Don't forget to give it a like and a subscribe if you'd like to be notified when my next video is coming out. Also, thanks as usual to everyone whose names you see on screen. These supporters of mine help me make these videos, and if you'd like my buying advice anytime, if you'd like to participate and ask me questions directly, get my early impressions of products, then please consider becoming a supporter. It's just the equivalent of like buying me a coffee once in a while, and in exchange I'll help you improve your audio system. So as always, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you online.